My name is Kevin Wilkinson, and I've been an attorney since 1981. I graduated from the University of Connecticut with a degree in accounting. I then went to Duke Law School and started my practice in Palm Beach County with the firm of Jones & Foster. After Jones & Foster, I was then a partner in a firm in Palm Beach called Murphy, McLaren, Pallott & Wilkinson. In 1988, I then began my own firm where I've done a litigation practice my entire career. At the beginning of the career, I was in construction litigation, but since moving my office to Wellington, it's almost exclusively family law. One of the main areas or reasons for that is that in the suburbs, which is where Wellington is, that's the main area of practice. So I do some construction litigation, but over 85% of my practice is confined to family law. As far as my educational background, I think the degree in accounting kind of lends itself to divorce litigation or family law because, in essence, family law is about two things. It's about accounting, income, numbers, assets, and liabilities. And then when it comes to children, it's about common sense. And those are pretty much the only two choices in the area. And when you stop using common sense with children, that's when the judges get involved and get mad. So I try to give my clients guidance in that area, particularly. On the accounting, what we try to do is we try to get all the information we can, figure out what information's missing, assemble it all, analyze it, and I start every case pretty much the same way. If I've got all the information, I will then make a settlement proposal right out of the block. If I don't have all the information, then what I'll probably do is go ahead and write a nice letter saying, would very much like to resolve the issue, but we are missing this information. Could you please provide it? Because sometimes when one side comes in, they don't have all the information, and some information is required of the other side. So pretty much everything starts with an attempt to try to resolve it. One of the main things people should focus on when facing divorce is that especially when children are involved, that the best way to get children through a divorce is to keep them out of the battlefield. They have no business in the battlefield. Now, one of the best ways to achieve that is to end the battle, which means, of course, try to settle the case. I find, and they say at seminars on divorce, that you see very good people at their worst in family law. They feel that they're wrong somehow. They feel like they've been hurt by their husband or wife, and they feel like they're justified in doing some things that really aren't appropriate. So I always recommend to clients to take the high road whenever possible. My simple rule that should be abided by is pretend the judge is sitting right next to you and ask yourself, what am I doing? Would a judge approve it? If the judge won't approve it, don't do it, because a judge surely will hear about it, and we'll have to put on our special tap shoes and figure out what we're going to tell the judge as the main reason you did that, when there's really no good reason. Some of the clients come back after years and they say, I used to hate it when you said take the high road, but we did it and it really made me feel better going through the process, particularly if you ever have to go to trial. If you go to trial, which is a last resort, and you go ahead and you've done all kind of silly actions that you yourself don't even agree you should have done, you're going to hear about them in court, you're going to walk into court, you're going to be worried about what you did, and we're going to be dealing all the time with defending your actions instead of talking about the children or instead of talking about the family finances. So essentially, behave, take the high road, even when the other side's taking the low road. That's very easy advice to give, almost impossible advice to follow in a divorce mode. In terms of the selection of attorneys and why you pick one attorney over the other, you of course have to feel comfortable. I say it this way: the client comes and puts their trust in me in one of the most important things of their lives, their children, and pretty much all the assets they have in the world. The divorce equation is one of the biggest business transactions you'll ever do. It's bigger than buying a house because the transaction usually involves what we're going to do with the house, what we're going to do with pensions, cars, credit cards. So it's much bigger than simply one transaction because it's a multitude of transactions. So what you need to do is put your trust, or find an attorney that you feel you can trust with those important things, the most important, of course, being the children. I in turn put my trust in the client in terms of doing the right thing with financial arrangements. I come from a very blue-collar part of Connecticut, and it's kind of funny because I don't usually require big retainers. And I was talking to my mom one day about that, and I said, you know, I should probably get bigger retainers. And she said this, and only a mother can say this. She says, what about the people that need your help? And when your mother says that, you kind of be quiet. So one of the things is I don't really require big retainers because I think it's a two-way street with a client. You have to trust me, and I have to trust you to do the right thing with the fees at the end of the case or during the case, to do your best to see what you can do to pay them. So that's how I feel about representation. But in the selection of an attorney, this is what's important, at least in my 26 years of doing this. When you're in a divorce mode, there's a small fire that's smoldering. In any case, even the friendliest possible case, there's some heat on the coals. All you have to do is have one of the four players, the wife, the husband's attorney, or the husband's wife, to be throwing gas on that possible fire, and you get an inferno. So what you have to do is keep as composed as you can and keep it as tight as you can in terms of your emotions, and don't let your emotions run away with you. Now that goes into the selection of an attorney. If I have to guess between two alternatives, in my career and my experience, you should try to find an attorney who has judgment rather than aggressiveness. Aggressiveness can get you in trouble. The fire we just talked about can get that fire blazing. Your aggressive attorney can then get their aggressive attorney more aggressive, and all of a sudden everybody's worried about being aggressive and not settlement oriented. You need an attorney that will evaluate the matter and use judgment to figure out how you go through the battlefield together to avoid the battle. So I think when you're looking for an attorney, whether it's my firm or anybody else's, try to think about judgment and what kind of judgment the attorney has. I think a lot of attorneys do what I call cheerleading. They take a person, the other spouse has left them, and they're somewhat susceptible. They want the judge to shave the other party's head or to be nasty and declare that one person's the good person and one person's the bad person. Judges really aren't in the business of doing that. They usually protect kids and divide assets. So you're not going to get that result anyway, but the concept if you want your day in court like that, you're not going to get that. You might as well just focus on the kids and focus on the finances. You want an attorney with a judgment to know when to fight and when to settle. And that's what I think is the key to a selection of an attorney. My philosophy is that most cases should be settled. The courtroom is a place of last resort. It's the best system we have, but it's not a place necessarily that you need to go. You only go there when you have to go there. So you should make all efforts you can, especially when it's accounting, to crunch the numbers, try to support the numbers so that the other side will be more apt to accept your numbers, particularly with the mediation process. So a big part of what I do is getting the numbers together. To some extent I do the other side's homework for them, because when I make them a settlement proposal, it'll include all the support for every number I can support. Some numbers can't be supported because they're more opinion oriented, such as the value of a house. You might get several different opinions, but how much the payoff of a house is not a hard one. How much credit cards are at a point in time is not a hard equation. So getting that homework done with supporting documentation is what I try to do in the beginning, so that when I make them a settlement offer to the other side, it's more apt to be received, because the attorney on the other side is going to look at it and say, where do these numbers come from? And if the numbers are right there as part of the packet, they'll be more apt to approve it. Now, having said that, you go to court, I probably try about 15% of my cases. I try only the ones that I have to try. And I probably spend more time in court trying to enforce settlements than in terms of trying to get them in the first place. A lot of people come to me after the fact and say the gentleman is not paying, or the person's not respecting visitation. In some of those cases, you already have a settlement, and you often don't have much choice but to bring it to the court, or what we have a procedure called general magistrate. So a lot of my practice is confined to the enforcement of settlements. When I have the case from the beginning, I have a very high success rate in being able to settle it. Thank you.